off the cuff with Wabtec, no script on my screen. Someone made a mention of the idea of putting a brace instead of a buttstock on a rifle so you can get away with having a short barrel rifle being a stupid idea. Let's correct some things here. One of the reasons that certain devices exist for firearms is they've been found to be useful for some specific purpose. A bipod on the front of a gun is useful because you don't want to brace it against a tree limb or put it on a fence, or just set it on a bench and have a proper bench with a proper lift for the front of the gun, or just hold it correctly. Or it was for a quick bipod that could be popped out for a machine gun. They're put on because they're cool or useful. Actually, it's both. But why the other accessories? Well, there's a bunch of accessories versus components. That's a whole other argument. But one of them that was brought up is something called a brace. Now, what is this brace? It's a device that goes over the top of your arm from here backwards, or from where your handle comes out, loops up and sits here, so that when you fire a gun, the recoil affects the entire arm and does it much less, rather than it throwing your wrist backwards and maybe being a wrist breaker. That's what they're for. Now, when people make really short-barreled guns that are ostensibly pistols, they can make them out of anything. You just have to start with a blank receiver or just build one from scratch. Some of them will make rifles. Well, not really. They're making literally a pistol that fires rifle rounds. It's out of a shorter barrel. It's wasting propellant unless you hand load them. All sorts of things. But one of the things they'll do is to put a pistol brace on it because the recoil is absolutely unacceptably high. And if they have to have a quick follow-up shot, like they're doing practical shooting, at least for, trying to kind of cheat by firing basically a really scaled-down rifle and making it custom. In the past, it was expensive. Putting a pistol brace on it isn't a buttstock, as long as it's less than 13 inches of pull from the trigger. It's too short to be a practical buttstock. And I can tell you for a fact, everybody who heard that decision made a decision to make sure, if they're not stupid, that every pistol-braced AR or handgun has a really short, not buttstock, but arm brace. And the ones who are really serious about it put an overtly obvious, real pistol brace on it. It's really a pistol brace. It's not just there to be, to annoy the ATF or trigger FUDs, Elmer Fudd types. It really is a pistol brace. And these are used for one-armed pistol competitions, and they're allowed if they're allowed. If they're not allowed, then you can't have the pistol brace. And the idea is you can take off the pistol brace, and it's just a pistol. And they look a lot like the little mini submachine guns that had an extendable folding stock on them. Now, doing that makes it an assault weapon in some laws, in some jurisdictions. And in another way, it makes it to where, it's basically just a shortened rifle. The ATF rules they're following are based on National Firearms Act 1934 or whatever. I don't remember what year. And the 1968 Gun Control Act, or whatever it's called. And these are all based on a set of rules that defined what is and is not acceptable as a conventional rifle, pistol, shotgun. And the ATF is absolutely notorious for making decisions and going back on them because they don't follow laws, and they are not allowed to make laws, but they make laws and then they ignore them whenever it's convenient. They're corrupt. This is an objective fact about their behavior at times. Or they're just told what to do by other politicians, and they just do whatever they're told so they can keep their funding going. I mean, you can interpret it any way you want to. But what's funny about the pistol brace thing is, if it's legit being used as a pistol brace, one-armed shooting, it's mandatory. If you're firing an AR-15 style lower that you bought raw or built from scratch, not an 80% lower that you ghost gunned, I mean, you really make one. Plate metal, whatever. You can use sheet metal that's aluminum and make one. In fact, that's a design that should be open. A specific YouTuber that existed should be doing that. But if you're firing .223, 5.56, it has just enough recoil, even with a gas system and all this kind of stuff, that you really do need a pistol brace. Never mind that I would just take a raw barrel for $80 and make a single shot pistol out of it, making my own version of a Thompson Center handgun that's used in competitions, and immediately put a pistol brace on it because I don't want to eat the barrel. Yeah, that's a problem. You get a dork stamp across your forehead. Never mind that that's a perfectly acceptable usage for it. Some of them shoulder it, and shouldn't have, and never should have talked about it. Just shut up about it. And then somebody asked the ATF, is it okay if we shoulder it? Because we haven't altered the gun. We're just misusing it at that point. And they said, yeah, go ahead. Knowing full well they were going to reverse the decision and go after people. Yes, a federal regulatory body that charges you money to let them regulate you so you can do commerce in this country lies to people about their intentions and changes their decisions all the time. And in that case, it wasn't spurred on by anybody. They just decided to do it just so they could fuck people over. Why would you trust this organization ever again? The ATF. Alphabet soup. So people bring up, I think it's dumb that they put a pistol brace on a rifle. It's not a rifle. It's born short. It's born a pistol. Just because a pistol fires cartridges that would normally go in a rifle doesn't change anything. That is actually a decision that cannot be changed because 22 long rifle, one of the weaker but not the weakest cartridges on the planet, was originally designed for rifles but it's used commonly in pistols. The law doesn't say what the chambering has to be unless it says it specifically. 50 BMG cartridges in certain states have to be rifles, and they're limited. Or not. So the argument about pistol braces. If they're legit used as a pistol brace, fine. If you're just doing it to put a short stock on a handgun so you can have a short barrel rifle and go, tee-hee, I didn't spend $200 on a tax stamp. I mean, really, that's what goes on with a lot of people. And then they realize after a while, yeah, it's fun to shoot and it's more of a challenge to aim because it's crap for shooting. And then they put on an 18-inch barrel on their pistol, which is, again, not against the rules, and then contact the ATF. If I put a stock on it and never take it off, can I just have my AR do that? Yeah. And it goes to being a rifle because they realize having a pistol grip only AR is just kind of fucking dumb. Again, unless you put the pistol brace on it and use it as intended, as it's designed, and suddenly you have a very effective weapon you can dead-ass aim instinctively or even with an outstretched arm. It's not that much of a kick. You can even do one that fires 7.62 or 30-06 or anything else you want. And it isn't a wrist breaker because your wrist isn't involved. It takes all the weight, puts it on your shoulder. Well, puts it on your arm, your elbow, so it's an elbow breaker. But the argument about these things being dumb or it shouldn't be illegal or it should be illegal or whatever, if you use things as they're intended, like you said you were going to instead of being disingenuous, none of this would have happened, right? Again, the ATF lied about shit. My opinion, I'm just going to give this. I think the 1930s National Firearms Act and the 1968 rules that were done in the heat of something that happened in the news that scared people should be repealed. I'm not kidding. Most people just intrinsically follow all these rules. The only thing I'd leave regulated are fully automatic weapons, not auto reloaders as they're supposed to be called. You call them semi-auto so you can have an argument about whether it's really auto. And that would be it. I would have every state have their laws and you'd have to respect them. If you demand states' rights, you're not allowed to complain when they curtail your rights. Shut up and live with it. Don't like it, move. I'm okay with it. Everything I do is, by definition, made to weasel out of having any laws against it in the first place. That's how I've lived my entire life. I grew up poor. You learn to avoid all the shit that's going to cause problems, that's all. Hey, I can move to this county and have less trouble. Or I can move to this county and maybe have more trouble, but maybe there's a benefit to it. I don't know. But when people bring up these arguments about these subjects, all I ever see is people talking about it ignorantly. And I actually do blame the people that run this government in the country. because they're the ones who create all this confusion, or just flat out lie to you about what you're allowed to do and then arrest you anyway. Entrapment. Anyway, those are my thoughts for the day, just because someone asked that on one of my channels. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.